We've been building our project management SaaS application for the last 13 months. So we decided we're going to break down how much money we've actually spent, because it's a really good thing to do rather than just spending money, actually figure out what you're spending. So we decided to sit down and go through that, and we thought it'd be very valuable to share it with everyone else. So you can kind of get an idea of what it costs to run a SaaS platform in 2025. It's not free, especially when you have users. I think that's the key thing. It can be free. There are a lot of tools that have, little limits, but as soon as you start crossing those barriers, you start having to pay to play. So we're going to break it down. Darrell, do you want to give a little bit of context about our platform and what it is that we're building?
Yep. So like Ken said, we're a project management platform, but we're doing it for content creators. So that means we have a lot of storage around videos that we have to consider. And at the moment we have no paying users, but it's a long game where we're trying to get people to test it and doing a lot of product development around it. And you sort of have to consider those subscription costs in the meantime. Like our first paying user will be paying off month one costs that occurred over 12 months ago. So keep that in mind, having that longer time horizon for where your money's going if you can't get users straight away on paid.
Cool. So, and who are our customers? Our customers are content creators. So that's obviously being a content management platform, our content creators. And we focus purely on video or longer form content. So with that comes bigger data storage. Think about a video is usually between 500 to a gig for a very short video. If you start talking 4K, or some of our users are like closer to 8K, you're starting to pay a lot of money for storing that file. So you have to be quite clever how you do that, versus a platform that just deals with images. Images are very small. They could be 5 to 10 meg. So you can store a lot of images before you even cross any boundaries. So that's something to keep in mind. There are a lot of services out there that can help you with that. But they also, once you hit a certain tier, you start paying, right? So there's no really a way to get around paying to host video. So that's the type of data we work with. As Darrell said, no paying customers yet because we're in beta, but also something very key, which is kind of a little bit of an unfair advantage to most people, is we don't pull salaries at this time. So it keeps the business very lean. If we added in salaries, it'd be in hundreds of thousands of dollars versus, just letting that ride. So that's an advantage we have, and we can play that for a long time, right? So we don't need that money. So, and we also are bootstrapped at this point in time, so that the funding all comes personally. So we also play a game. Just as one thing is that I am personally, on top of myself, very tight with money. So I like to spend as little as possible. So you can see, even though there are some big costs here, it is pretty much the minimum we could be doing with. We also evaluate a lot of the times, like how much time will it take to build the thing versus how much will it cost to just buy it. So we have to do that when you're in a small team, something to consider as well. All right.
Yep. And we're going to break down, we'll break down the costs basically in two categories, which is things that the actual software needs to survive or will need to survive in the future, all of those sort of costs, which are actually keeping the site running, keeping users functioning, doing what they're doing, and then all the other costs that we have that sort of surround the business for everything else we're doing outside of just running the software.
Excellent. All right, so let's dive in, because that's what you want. You want the numbers. So to start off, this is the piece which is the actual app itself to run it, right? So there's a cost involved. We very quickly, like I said, crossed the free tiers, but we started off with Fly.io for our host. So Fly is a very cool piece of software. It handles all the deployments and very simple to use. Now, we started on that, and we hosted all our data inside of S3, AWS S3. So that was a great starting point. But what we quickly found out was that the data transfer out of AWS, and he's the one player in the game that's going to hold on to that. Everyone else is generally starting to be free, but they charge you for transferring data. What happens is, when every time we needed to analyze a video for a thumbnail or to see how long it was, we were transferring data from AWS to Fly, and we got a very scary bill very early on with very little usage. So we quickly moved away from that, and we moved everything into AWS. So now AWS is our primary hosting provider, which is very sneaky by them, but they've got us for everything. So we are paying AWS at the moment around $500 a month, and we are using the Fargate services, which is basically a Kubernetes style thing. We can auto scale our instances. We're using S3, and we're using intelligent tiering in S3. So what that means is we take a a video or a file and we put it in, and then AWS will automatically say, oh, this video is not used that often, so it'll downgrade it to a slower storage, so it takes a bit more time to get it out. But what we know is when you're making something like a project in content, you're going to be working on it for a couple of weeks, and then basically just gets forgotten. So once you've published it, you don't really access those files anymore. So it's a very good solution for us to do that. And it's one of the main reasons why we keep using S3 versus other tools. From there, we also have Route 53, which is basically the DNS system. Doesn't cost much money. And another tool we're using is the Media Convert. So a couple of weeks ago, we implemented the ability to, instead of just streaming the full version of a video, because it could be 20 gig, we're actually converting that down into smaller videos and chunks, and we can stream it way better. Now, there are services that can do this for you, but you do have to see now the volume that you do. Like we pay upfront for the Media Convert, but then, we're streaming through CloudFront and bringing those costs down because we're streaming parts and chunks. So AWS at this point in time is about $500 a month. So if you extrapolate that, I think if my maths off the top of my head is about $6,000 a year, right? Just in hosting that. And that's kind of the meat and the potatoes of what we do. We then use Supabase, and Supabase is a Postgres database host. That's pretty much, it does a lot of other things, but we primarily use it just for the database. We're paying $200 a month for that because we're paying for the higher tier, like the pro level, because our users' data is super important. And I think this is really key. Once you have real users, you need to respect their data like an enterprise. And we pay for that. So we're paying for IP4 address, and we're also paying for point-in-time recovery, which is the big bulk of that, and the ability to be able to basically back up to any time, like within minutes. So if something goes wrong with the database, you can roll back to a couple of minutes, not rather than 24 hours, which is the default. You pay a chunk of money for that, but it really creates a peace of mind there, and just that it's all hosted and it's all safe. So number one, you never want to lose a user's data because you're going to lose instant trust. The next piece in the puzzle, which is kind of like the one we've recently added, is Flight Control, and they handle all our infrastructure and deployment. So very nice tool, highly recommend. But if you are using AWS, you plug Flight Control on top of that, and it will deploy to AWS and set up all the services in a very secure enterprise level. So we're not DevOps team. We don't really work too much in infra. But Flight Control really handles that nicely, and that costs us $125 a month. So if you add that all up, we're at $825 a month, basically to keep the app running, just online, moving forward. So very good to know those numbers, obviously, so that you can figure out how much you need to charge. And as you scale, how much data does each user bring on, and how much does that cost you over the life of it, and how much they should be paying for that. Because everyone wants, free software, blah, blah, blah. But like there is a cost involved. Someone needs to be paid. So we do need to factor that in. All right, Darrell, do you want to handle our subscriptions?
Yeah. Where did we get to? We got to subscriptions. All right. So I'd say the first one is centered around communication. You're obviously going to have to chat to whoever you're working with. You could do this on messages, but everything's going to get polluted really fast. We use Slack for most of the work chat stuff that goes on. And we also use Slack for the community, for for the users. They can provide feedback on Slack. We're on the free plans of both of the Slacks at the moment, but that can cost $10-15 a month once you're actually paying for it. And then G Suite, obviously you need emails to be talking to people, especially in the very early days. You're going to be doing cold outreach most likely. You need emails for that. So we use G Suite, and that's $22 a month, which is, I'm guessing, $11 per user, Ken.
Yep.
Then there's Woodpecker, was like a cold emailing software that we were using, which I think we've just churned from, which is $80 a month. And that's like anything you can do to automate things when you're starting out are going to cost money because they're taking your time, making it easier for you. Ahrefs, which is an SEO tool, that's $52 a month. Then design tools, we've got Figma at $65 a month for the amount of users that we have, which is pretty much essential for getting the designs done so things can be built. Then moving on to a bit of the marketing, content generation stuff, we've got quite a few AI tools that we use here and there in the background, like Ideogram, $12 a month. Midjourney $16 a month. I think I use Ideogram, Ken uses Midjourney. There's not really much difference between the two, but just personal preference. We both ended up there. There's Cursor as well, but both of us have used and not used it at various times, so we didn't bother with a actual figure there. We've got X Premium at $26 per user. When we first started out, we were leaning very heavily into trying to grow those profiles and just get it out there that like we were serious about this business, basically. So we were investing money to look like you're taking yourself seriously on social platforms, whether it's Instagram or anything. Having those sort of badges for the cost is almost nothing, because when you're doing cold outreach early on, people are going to look you up. If you connect with them with your offer, your message, whatever, they're not necessarily going to convert until they've gone and looked you up online. And if they find one of these platforms, it's just going to give you that little bit of extra, them a bit of confidence in you, which you're asking for a lot of confidence when you're just starting out.
Yep.
Then we've got Artlist, which is a new one, which is music. So if you're making video content, you're going to sometimes need music behind your stuff, and that's a subscription that we pay for that. And then did I miss CapCut? Yeah, so there's CapCut as well, which is an editing tool. You can get free variations of this, but we're spending, both me and Ken are spending about $9 a month. And I still use Resolve, the free version, for some things, but then a lot of the editing's done in CapCut, and you want to make those things as fast as possible, because you will spend a lot of time just messing around with video, especially if you're not that familiar with it. Get the AI tools that make cutting faster, captions faster, and all the things that are like, you sort of have to have them to play in the content space. You want to make them as fast as possible with AI tools where it doesn't cost too much, which those tools don't cost too much. I personally use Poppy AI a fair bit, which is, I think it was an annual plan I paid for, but it works out to about $80-90 a month. And all of those tools, everything combined, there's probably a few missed off there. I think right now we're on StreamYard. That's probably another $10-15 a month, but we're approaching about $1,200, $1,300 a month there, just in subscriptions. Mm-hmm. Keeping in mind that since the start of this, we haven't had all of these things all the time. You add them as you need them, off board when you need to, because like Ken said at the start, you want to keep tight with your money. So we have been quite conscious about where we're spending it, if it's worth the time and the money that it's saving, and turning things off when you need to is important. Like if it's coming out of your bank account, if you're a startup, it's a lot easier to do because you're watching it come out of your bank account. If you get a big bankroll from the bank of mum and dad or the bank of VC funding, you're probably not going to turn off these tools because you're like, what's $65 a month? I'm growing my team. I don't care. Think about it a bit more, whether or not things are actually providing value once in a while. Be a bit critical about the spending is a good idea. Mm-hmm. And then into a la carte. This is where things get quite expensive. Once again, these are things that we've scaled up over time when we've realized that we really need it, and we are going to continue scaling these figures. Editing a video for long form videos, which we're starting to do more and more of, is $60 to $100 a video. And at the moment, I think you said, Ken, it's $1,200 a month that we're spending. Yeah.
This is one we're actually going to scale up.
Yeah, so at the moment, we're talking about potentially scaling up to multiple editors and other team members as well. So adding thumbnail designing in, adding people to write or research, things like that. So that's at the moment $1,200 a month, but it could go up from here. Definitely. One of the main reasons we're doing that is because we wholeheartedly believe in video content selling products, and like we're also double that, triple that into Meta, but we believe that the video content lasts a really long time and helps sell the product in a way that other businesses won't be able to compete. Like you can have AI startups spool up overnight, but if they don't have a long-term library of video helping people, talking to people, it's a moat that a lot of the AI stuff won't be able to do as easily. So we're investing quite heavily in that, which, I mean, it also makes sense because our whole product is sort of hinged on that being where the market's going. So hopefully it is. Hopefully we're right about that. And then Facebook Meta ads, we're running $40 per campaign per day at the moment, running 3 to 5 campaigns. And then, so that's about $200 a day or $6,000 a month. We are obviously not necessarily running them all the time or for an entire month, but that's roughly what we're expecting. That's the one that at the moment we're being the most critical of. So we're really watching that and making sure, because we're not asking for money from anyone at the moment, It's more painful, but it's long term. It's just getting user data, so it's worth it. But we're just keeping a close eye on how much conversions are costing, and then monitoring that. So we wouldn't just turn that on and leave it at $6,000 a month, just blasting away every month without looking at it. Like, we're really, the higher the spend is, the more critical we are of spending it the whole way through. And then, do you want to go through all of the things that are free that we're not paying for yet, but likely will eventually?
I'll just quickly add to the video editing. So where we're also going to be scaling is we're paying 60 to 100, which gets you X time on an edit, but we're also trying to increase our quality over time. And we have seen the more you spend, because it just gives our editors more time, the better the quality or the output.
Yep.
So really, we are doubling down on this, and you can see the type of content we're also making. So we're spending more time doing that. And like Darrell said, it's something you invest in, and it's definitely, I really like that point on it being a moat for, if someone can spool up Clipflow in a day, that's great, but now you have to get marketing, and you have to have that library. Because maybe you can AI generate 500 videos in a day, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long time for YouTube to pick you up and you to build subscribers and to do all that. You're still going to have to play that game. And we're trying to start playing that game early, and we have been trying to do that. So we really believe in that, straight up. Facebook Meta, again, like Darrell said, we're constantly watching, but we're also learning. So it's kind of like you're paying down your ignorance debt, I guess. It's we have to learn what works, and we have to learn what messaging works. So we're just going to be spending that. And I think this is going to be one thing we spend on for forever. It's a way of acquiring cold customers at the top of funnel, people just who don't even know of you. It's working. It's converting quite well. We're talking $15 to $25 per conversion for a user, which is an email, which is a warm lead. That's a warm lead. They've expressed interest. They've actually gone and signed up. They've put in effort. Now we have that, and we can communicate with them. So for us, we're seeing that as $25 a lead is decent for now. We can always work on getting better. We're still going to experiment with video ads, and that's another reason why we'll invest more in editing as well. So we're just figuring out our formulas and going from this. But yeah, those two things are probably you can see already, the more expensive part of running this business. But so we're talking 7,200, let's call it. I reckon that'll scale to 10K a month. But the nice thing is that's your salaries. And I mean, that's not even a salary. 10K a month is 120K a year in Australia. That's not even one person. So for us to spend that while we can, where we're not investing in salaries or pulling salaries, it's very, it's a good thing for us. So free tools that we're using at the moment, which will move into paid, like Darrell said, but is PostHog, which is sick, which is for product analytics. Great tool, just helps us look at user journeys, how they get to our page, what they're doing when they're looking at our website. You can watch them scroll. It's all anonymous, but you can still see how users behave. Very good. It can show you churn. It can show you how users are coming back over time. Who's session times for us, which has been really cool, seeing how 20 to 40-minute sessions. That's how we know we have a product that people are using. It's not something they use once and never come back. Once they use it properly, they're in. So that Slack is free at the moment, but Darrell said, it's $15 usually per user. So as you scale and you want the more than 30 days worth of message history, we use it very ephemerally. So it's kind of you say then have the chat, but we don't really search it. So we're kind of happy with that right now. We store anything long-term would be stored in a proper document elsewhere.
Yeah, that's quite easy to do, but you do have to remember to do it. Anytime someone posts something and you're like, this is going to matter for more than 30 days, make sure you're storing it somewhere else in your Notions or wherever it is.
Yep. So but the nice thing that we're doing this time around is we are doing our weekly updates. We're doing our content. So that becomes a library for us as well, to just be able to have and see how we were thinking. And that's kind of the more important part for us. Then we have Linear, which is great, which is kind of the Jira replacement, which is just project management and ticketing. So we can add features on the board, what to build. Really, it's just, do you use it that often, Darrell? Or is it more just,
no, but only because I've been focusing on pretty much all of the surrounding stuff and not on the app for a while. So I haven't been in there that much.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time in Linear. It's really just to create tickets so that I know that this branch belongs to that ticket, and it's very easy for us to track, and I can dump any info we need or we get from users there. So Linear is good, really good, and we'll probably be paying for that very shortly because we already crossed the 250 issues limit, so it goes fast. Then randomly, Darrell, we got courses.
Yep. Yeah, so anytime that I want to learn something that I don't already know, I usually spend a bit of money on things that are not worth the money, and then find something that's worth the money and then spend that. I'd estimate between the two of us, we've probably spent about 5 grand in that time on courses and resources too. Like when you're editing, you can shortcut a lot of things by just downloading packs of things that
Yeah.
people have already edited before. So there's been a bit of that here and there, and just general learning, stuff like that. There's quite a few things there. So that's probably about 5 grand. And then equipment is another undetermined cost of things that you need, like use your iPhone, use your computer. It doesn't matter too much, so don't really need to break that one down.
Yeah, so the courses one's good. It's a way to shortcut your learning. Like I spent on the Facebook ads course. Like you get, I think that sometimes you have to just understand that you're going to get a little bit out of the course. Like you just, as long as you get like one or two things and you think that's worth the money.
3 items from it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty useful. Like there are courses and things where they're probably not worth it. You know, a lot of the time you hear is like, you only get in what you put out. And for me, that doesn't you only get out what you put in. And you only get out what you put in. And sometimes I feel like that's like a little bit of a lame way to say it. It's like you only get value if you put value in. And it's like, nah, that's not how I want this exchange to work. Like I want to pay for something and then get value out, full stop. I don't want to have to contribute to the group to get something out. So
yeah, my experience with all the courses so far has been there's always like 3 or 4 things across the entire course that are worth probably the entire course in the time they save you. But the only problem is you have to watch most of the course to find them. And like a lot of the stuff you're like, it doesn't matter to me, but you just got to pull the things out that are really going to save you time and make it worth the course much. And like everyone builds courses to be, it's 40 hours of education. Like if you could just give me the 3 things in 3 minutes, it'd be harder to spend the same money, but you probably would if you knew the end result was going to be the same, because you said
it's like do one for people who are time poor. Here's the whole thing, but I've pulled out the most important parts, because there's so many parts in courses where people are just rambling and you're like, I get it, it makes this video kind of work, but if you can just cut it out. And it's just like we ramble. So just the TLDR. And then, so equipment, Darrell just said covered that, but just our cameras, we spend money on lighting, cameras, mics, all that kind of stuff, just to make our stuff a bit more professional, because obviously we want to play in that space. So overall, you can see it costs quite a little bit of money to play in this game. It's not free. It's definitely not free once you start having users. So there are platforms there that have very generous free tiers, which you can play in while you're validating your idea. But as soon as you have users who are relying on you to keep that data safe and be up online, you need to pay. Like, you can get
those
a free
things
database.
are like massive investments in your future. Like, don't skimp on security, data quality. Like, you want to, even though it costs more in advance, to be safe there and not be worried about it, and like not be waking up in the middle of the night worrying if like maybe the server that I'm running at home to do the whole app is turned off and I don't have a UPS. Like, spend the money for comfort and spend the money because the customer is going to trust you more if you've already invested that time and money up front, which can be a bit painful because it costs more. Yeah.
And I think one thing we always think about, again, like I just highlight, is find the things that save you time, and then just see, like, is this worth my time? If I were to do it, like, am I going to save, like, what's my hourly rate worth? Now, for us, obviously, we've done a business. We know what our hourlies are worth. We know what we can achieve. So we have quite a high value on that time. When you're starting out and you have no money, it's hard to value your time. So you could say, like, if I spend $80 a month on this thing, how much time is it going to save me? And if I spent that time marketing or something, will I get more customers? Usually the answer is going to be yes. So just do that. Again, just constantly going to be highlighting, there's lots of services out there that you can get free, servers, or even flights free, but then they turn your instance off when it's not used. And when you have not many users, there's the cold start time. Even Vercel does that, right? So if you don't have people constantly viewing, you can have cold starts, and then that makes your app look crap because you're not paying $5 a month. So just pay the $5 a month, have your app up all the time so it loads instantly, get a better experience. So don't be scared to pay. Just figure out your runway. Don't go ahead, don't build enterprise level infrastructure if you don't have users. But very quickly, if you do have users, you start rolling it out. We decided to make that decision quickly and early so that we know we can scale from there and not have to worry about it. So
Yeah.
all good. That's us so far. What are we totaling here, Darrell? We're totaling quite a lot of money. We're talking
9.
6,000 times 12, 70 grand on Meta. We're talking 12, let's call it 2 grand times 12, 24. So we're talking 94 grand between video editing and Meta. And then we're
Like
talking
111 or something.
another 14K on just basically services and subscriptions. And then our hosting is about another, 10 to 15 grand. So there's a bit of money, and you can see why people need VC funds to survive or even just get going.
What's the total there annually?
It's probably over 100 to 150 grand. Mm-hmm. But Meta is 50% of that. So if you can figure out, so the faster we can figure out how to do organic marketing and get those leads across, the better, because you can rely less on that. It's also great to have multiple marketing streams in case you do get banned from a platform. You haven't lost all your leads. So it's good to have that spread across.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd consider there is one thing that we've been thinking about the whole way through. One of the reasons we're comfortable spending that money is we're aware of what we want to be charging for the product one day. And we're quite comfortable that with a certain amount of users based on the market size, we'll very much be able to cover those costs. So if you were doing it in a very competitive space where most things are free and you're trying to charge, you're not going to want to be spending the same money. And if you're operating in a space where it's selling a $10,000 course, you can operate at a much higher level and spend way more on, it's just, you've got to keep in mind what you're going to be making or planning to make. Like, this is all just a gamble on the future income that we're pretty confident we can get X number. Make sure you've got that number in mind before you start spending all this money on stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. And always save your coins. All right, guys. Thank you. Catch you on the next one.
Peace out.
Bye.